guys, welcome back to our channel. It is the month of March. I'm Ash.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we're
the Savvy Blondes.
We are getting better and better at that.
We are, and I even did that with a cookie in my mouth.
Right? So talented. Our cookies tonight are from Soda Rush. They're amazing. Mine is vegan and gluten-free because I'm hella extra like that.
Mine is not, but it's orange, which means there's food coloring in it.
Right? Was they not supposed to be?
Oh, no. I just enjoy the extra added sugar and additives that are in food coloring.
Okay.
Like red dye number 40.
I understand. You have a lot of allergies, so I wasn't sure. Anyways, for the month of March, we wanted to take a step back from kind of the more fun, upbeat things and projects that we've been working on and really focus on mental health. So we're calling it Mental Health March. I feel like every month is mental health something.
Yeah.
Which it should be, because mental health is a year-round issue that we need to talk about. So
I agree, absolutely.
For this first episode for the month of March, we wanted to kind of slow down and talk about our personal experiences with mental health issues, what we have, how we got it. We'll talk a little bit about how we deal with it, but we're going to save most of that for future episodes. So without further ado, do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like this is like Mental Health Anonymous. Hello, everyone. My name is Ash.
Hi, Ash.
Hi, Ash.
Wait, no, I feel like you need to pick a different name.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen. It's Karen, everyone.
Karen. Oh, man. So my struggle with mental health goes back pretty much to my infancy. I happen to have been born into a rather traumatic situation. My mom was a teen mom, and when you're born into a traumatic situation, born out of a traumatic situation, you're kind of traumatized from the get-go.
Absolutely.
And obviously, to no one's fault, it just happens sometimes. And so I remember being really little, like toddler age, and having anxiety. And for me as a kid, it would manifest in a lot of different ways. I had an intense fear of abandonment, and I remember one time when I was probably 3, I think, I got in trouble and I got sent to my bed, and I don't remember how long I was there, but I got really bored, or maybe I got put to bed early, I don't remember, but I pulled out all of my eyebrows and all of my eyelashes. Like, I looked like I had cancer and that it had all fallen out. And I remember not so much feeling super stressed, but just feeling frustrated, and I really didn't know how else to deal with it. So I just started messing with them and pulling them out. And then I realized they were fun little hairs I could like feed to my dolls or whatever. But I remember feeling very like OCD about like continuing to pull them out. And that was a major manifestation of anxiety for me at a young age. As I got older, my anxiety changed a lot, and it would manifest as stomach aches. And that's really, really common for kids. Mm-hmm. When they're not able to articulate, I'm stressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm nervous, I'm scared,
right,
they get a stomach ache. And a lot of times, I'm a mom, we as moms tend to write those stomach aches off as, oh, you just don't want to go to school today, oh, you're just nervous before your play, whatever. For me, it would manifest in a stomach ache, and I'd be really afraid to throw up, and so I'd be hunched over the toilet for a long time thinking I was going to throw up, and so there was a lot of anxiety going on from a very young age. And I found, not until I was actually an adult, but a lot of things that happened around my childhood made a lot more sense when I found out as an adult that my anxiety, when it goes unmanaged, actually is what triggers my depression. And for some people, it's the opposite. Some people get really depressed, and then they try to cycle themselves out of it, and that kind of produces that feeling of anxiety and those anxious thoughts and things. For me, it's exactly the opposite. If I've gone so long without,
that's how I am.
Self-soothing and coping properly and all of that, it manifests. My body kind of hits its peak, like, all right, you've spent all of your energy, you've got no more to give, and then just crash.
I'm the same exact way, actually. Yeah, that's really interesting you say that, because I really feel like the other way is super common in my life, at least. Like,
right.
A lot of my friends who have depression don't understand that, like, I'm just this walking ball of, like I think about the squiggly lines you see over people's heads in, like, Charlie Brown when they're frustrated.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can equate what my anxiety feels like on a day-to-day basis. And it just, like, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden it goes away, but then it's, like, sad.
But then there's sadness.
Right.
Right, exactly. And so for me, I think there were a lot of things that happened, in my young adulthood that really triggered a lot of more severe depression. For example, after I had my first child, how old was I when I had him? I was 19, so I was very young, and we had just gotten married. We weren't planning on having kids for like 5 years. And then, I was on the pill, and well, what are you going to do?
Right.
So I had my first baby at 19, and as excited as I was for that, and as happy as I was to be a mom, and that's what I had wanted for most of my life, and as exciting as that was, it caused a lot of anxiety. I mean, there was anxiety coming from all sides.
Right.
I'm responsible for this human life, and I'm barely still, I'm kind of a child myself.
Absolutely.
I just got married. Like, what if I, lose my figure and my husband finds someone else? Like, your mind just races. And so because I didn't deal with that anxiety, added with the hormones, I slipped into really bad postpartum depression that eventually turned into postpartum psychosis, and I was hallucinating, and it was just really bad. And I think the one thing that I regret a bit about that time period was that I didn't reach out and I didn't seek help. And there were a couple of reasons for that. I think the first one was that I had been going through most of my pregnancy with doctors telling me, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. And, they weren't very supportive. And then, so for me to then go back and say, I'm struggling, I'm having a hard time, felt to me like they would have been like, well, we told you so. And so I really was hesitant to go forward to doctors. And then, of course, the age-old, I'm scared they're going to take my baby away. Right. If I tell them what's really going on in my head.
Absolutely.
Was also a huge fear of mine. And so that went really untreated for a really long time. And I was able to kind of pull myself up by my bootstraps a little bit, and I was able to get to a place where I was semi-functional. But then that untreated depression, untreated anxiety started manifesting in anger, like really intense anger and resentment towards my kids, towards my husband, towards my life, all of it. So it wasn't until about 2012 or so that I kind of hit rock bottom, and everything just kind of went, like, you got to stop what you're doing, stop everything, you need to get help. And I did. And I mean, my life like turned on a dime from there. And I wound up having another baby in 2013. And I really didn't have as many issues with postpartum depression like at all. Aww. After I had her. So I'm really thankful that I did go and get that help. And so that's kind of my history with mental illness, and we can kind of come back to this later and talk about where we are today and what that looks like for us now. But
Yeah.
What's your history with all of this?
So growing up as a kiddo, like K through 8th grade, I actually never really had any manifestations of depression or anxiety. I've always kind of had OCD, but it only got worse as I got older because my OCD will set off my anxiety. I have a really, really big issue with repeated sounds, but like that are at perfect tempo. So I'm a musician, which is like why that's crazy, because if something is not at perfect tempo, I will freak out. Like I will literally start crying, and it gives me just full-blown like panic attack. Like you would think somebody told me the worst possible thing I could have ever heard. And so like people who click their pens during class, I will listen. Like the first couple of pen clicks won't bother me, but if it starts to go at an uneven rhythm, I will literally start freaking out and hyperventilating. And people think it's crazy because it's like, oh my god, like this girl doesn't like pen clicking or whatever. And I'm like, you need to stop. Like I will freak out, please stop. And like they just don't get it. But so when I got into high school, I've talked about this before, but I came from a very, very small community K through 8th grade, which I am thankful for because I have lifelong friends from it. But because of that, I wasn't really exposed to anything. Like we never had conversations about what you do if you start to feel sad, or what to do if you start to feel like your life is out of your control, because that never happened. And so I got to high school and those things started to happen to me. I didn't have any friends because I didn't know anybody, and nobody wanted to talk to the new girl, even though we were all new.
Right.
It just wasn't like that. And so I started, cutting my hair and dyeing my hair, and that was kind of the first thing. I was like, this is the one thing I can control about everything that's going on.
I do that too. That's like, if you guys ever see me with a drastic haircut, I've been struggling.
Right.
And this is like
Your
my
way of
last
reemerging.
ditch attempt to like assert some control over my life.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing, like after breakups, after whatever, like that was kind of what I started to do, and I still do it now. But then that didn't help. And so then I actually, I struggled with self-harm and an eating disorder. I was severely anorexic and bulimic, and so I dealt with that in high school. And my anorexia, people always tell me, like, well, you weren't skinny in high school.
Yes.
And people...
I had the same thing. I developed anorexia in high school as well.
Yeah.
And it was not severe, but it was anorexia.
Right.
But I was never, waif thin. I was never rail thin, and so people didn't believe me.
See, mine was severe in the fact that, like, I was throwing up constantly, but I liked to eat. And so I would go on these purges where I would just eat and eat and eat, and then I wouldn't eat for days on end, and I would just throw up whatever I could. But I would never lose weight because, like, that's not how that necessarily works.
Right.
Like, it just would kind of counteract one another, and I would stay stagnant. And so my friends would be like, oh, like, good for you, you're not eating today. Like, good for you, you're going to lose weight. Like, good for you, you're dieting. And that was so frustrating to me.
Teenage girls are the worst about that.
Yeah,
and
they
even
are.
adult women, like, I've had adult women say, like, oh, I'm not eating today. Or, if I'm not hungry for something and they offer me food and I'm like, no, I'm not hungry right now. They're like, oh, are you not eating today? That's awesome. And it's like,
What are you doing?
No,
Yeah.
that's not how this works.
Yeah, and I see it. Well, we'll talk about our lives like currently later, so I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, so I dealt with that, and then I started cutting myself. I self-harmed a lot, and that was just kind of my coping mechanism, and that was kind of what got me through senior year of high school, like all the way through to college, because it was my one outlet where I was like, I know that this is something I can control. Like, I can control if I cut too deep, or if I cut my thighs versus my wrists, or whatever way I did that. And so the kind of thing that brought me up from doing that was senior year of high school. I was babysitting this little girl, and we were watching a princess movie, and I always wore sweaters and like cuffs and stuff, like bracelets and everything to hide them. And I take them off, and I don't remember why. I think I was giving her a bath or something, and I never liked, putting those in water because, like, it's gross.
Right.
And some of them were cloth, so, like, that would be weird. And she was like, what are those? And pointed to, like, my scars. And I was like, oh, like, sometimes when I'm sad, like, that's, I scratch myself would be what I would say. And she was like, well, why do you hurt yourself when you're sad? Why don't you just tell somebody that you're hurting? She was like, why would you hurt yourself more? It's kind of like the fact that this is coming out of such a small child's mouth, and it like really spoke to me. And so I did reach out for help, and it was to teachers that I was really close with in high school, and so they helped me kind of reframe my situation a little bit, which helped a lot. But then I also had really bad anxiety, which I still struggle with, and I have the similar issue to where it just grows and grows and grows, and then I get depressed. But my anxiety came out in trichotillomania like yours did, where I would pull out my hair. My Spanish teacher in high school, I will never forget this, would always leave a broom in the classroom, because during his class especially, I would pull out my hair, and my hairline is still weird because of it.
Yep, right here.
Yeah.
Same.
And he would make me sweep it up after class because it got so bad, and he was like, you can't leave this here. And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. But there are still pictures of me even from like junior and senior year of high school where my eyebrows look like lines.
Like lines, yeah.
Because I would pluck them at like 4 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep. Or I would like rip them out. And same with my eyelashes. Like, my eyelashes still look weird when I don't have fake eyelashes on because I would pull them out. And then I did the skin picking, I did the scratching. So all of that kind of was how that manifested itself. My depression feels like, I call it like almost the calm after the storm, because once my depression will last like one day, like after that anxiety just like hits, and then I feel nothing. Like, it's like there's nothing going on. Like, I'm not capable of like feeling any more sadness, but I'm not capable of feeling happy. And so it takes something like genuinely like wonderful or horrible to happen to like push me one way or the other and get back to an even keel. And so I've learned how to kind of simulate those things in a way to make things happier, to like find those things that like I know bring me immense joy, and I have a journal where I write them down and I say, okay, like I need to do this or this, or talk to this person, or watch this movie or whatever. And it kind of kicks me back and is like, hey, like, get out of it, snap out of it, whatever. And I've gotten a lot better at it not getting to that point. But it's still something that I struggle with,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's hard. And I think, not only does a lot of mental illness not get diagnosed or reported among millennials, we don't always have the financial resources to go and see a therapist.
Well,
you know,
and then I feel like there's also a stigma against it still. Like,
absolutely.
when I was in high school and I would tell my parents, you know, like, I'm not okay, like, I'm not happy, I don't feel good, it was kind of like, you're fine. And, like, my family has a really long history of mental health issues. My sister has bipolar disorder, and, you know, we have anger management issues in my family and all of that. And so, to me, I saw those things growing up, and I thought,
Right.
well, why wouldn't you want me to get help? Why would you want that to happen to me? And, you know, I look at it a lot differently now, but my parents didn't really put in the effort for me to get the help when I asked for it. So I dealt with that whole, you know, there's the stigma against it, like, you don't have it, you're fine, you're just upset, it's hormones, you're a teenager, whatever.
Yeah.
And now they're like, you need to go to a you need to talk to somebody, like, and yeah, so.
I think it's hard being a teenager specifically, and, you know, our show doesn't really reach a lot of teens, I don't think, but, you know, it's hard being a teen specifically, I think, because now, I mean, I don't know how it was for you when you were in high school, but I didn't really deal with this in high school because I was a senior when MySpace was really catching on, but now we've got cyberbullying that's contributing to all these, you know, things and perpetuating all of these harmful stigmas around mental health. And, you know, just for me personally and my story, you know, a lot of people that I surrounded myself with and even some family members were, you know, very much more of the, you know, less talk, more Jesus, you know, like, you just need to pray about it. You just need Jesus. And while that is 100% true, I also feel that mental health professionals are here for a reason, and that, you know, psychology and psychiatry as a study is here for a reason, and that we should utilize that and take advantage of that. And, you know, whether that looks like herbal remedies, whether that looks like, you know, pharmaceutical medication, whatever means that you can take that's productive in helping you, not necessarily numbing your pain, because you need to learn how to process that. I think it's a huge reason that a lot of us struggle mentally is we never learned how to properly process pain. And so if you can sort of, you know, my counselor sort of explained medication like this to me. She said it's kind of a patch, and you put it on to stop the immediate bleeding, and then you allow the wound to heal from the inside out. That's all of the mental health work. So you're going to therapy, you're, you know, journaling, you're reading books on things, you're doing self-care, all of that. You're healing that wound from the inside out. And then you can take the Band-Aid off. You can take the patch off. You know, some people are never able to fully take the patch off. Some people's patches get smaller. And sometimes your wound reopens, but it's a process.
I love that.
And it's not that you need to be dependent on having that patch or that Band-Aid there. It's there for when you need it. And that really helped me take a lot of the stigma out of taking pharmaceuticals specifically. I had a friend when I was in my very early 20s and still really struggling through my postpartum depression, whose mom actually committed suicide because she was on a combination of anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication. And just, it was absolutely horrifying. And I think that really instilled a fear of pharmaceuticals in me, especially because I struggle with both anxiety and depression. But for me, as it stands now, sort of where are we now?
Right.
I still struggle with anxiety and with depression. And for me, you know, my depression feels a lot different, I think, than yours does. Mine feels like this. So, you know, when you're outside and you're kind of minding your own business and there's some clouds in the sky, but it's sunny. And then all of a sudden the temperature drops like 5 or 6 degrees. You get little goosebumps on your skin, and it's like dark because there's all these clouds that kind of cover the sun, and everyone kind of stops and goes, whoa, and then they're like, oh, it's just clouds. It feels like that. Like, I can literally feel it coming on. I can feel it moving in, and it just feels like, well, here it is. And it feels heavy. I get like heaviness like in my chest, in the pit of my stomach. I can't move. It's difficult for me to get out of bed. It's like all I can do to get out of bed sometimes, to like get my kids dressed and get them out the door and get them to school. You know, I have no motivation to work. I have no motivation to hang out with friends. I have no motivation to text or call anyone back. So it gets really bad in that sense. And thankfully I haven't been in a place of, you know, suicide ideation or contemplation in a number of years, and that's really awesome, because that is something I struggled with for a while. But I find that if I'm able to kind of rewind a little bit and recognize, you know, you're running up here with your anxiety and you're not treating it and you're not dealing and you're not, you know, utilizing your resources and managing your triggers, you know, then all of a sudden it just crashes. And so some of the things that I do something similar. My counselor had me write down a list of things that are cathartic for me, things that feed my soul and make me happy. And so one of these goes all the way back to when I started struggling with postpartum depression. And my husband was working really crazy shifts at the airport. He was working from 3 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
Holy buckets.
Right. So he would wake up pretty much the same time that my oldest would wake up, in the middle of the night. So I'd be feeding him. He'd be crying. He was really fussy for a while because he had some stomach issues. And so, you know, my husband would have to leave for work in the middle of all of that. And I just felt so alone and so abandoned. And no one ever feels quite right in the middle of the night. Like, it's hard, especially if you're, you know, hormonally challenged at the moment after having a baby and your boobs are leaking and it's just a mess. So he would leave to go to work and I'd be home and I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. And so I would sit up in the living room with my baby in my arms, or I would have put him back to bed, and I would watch White Christmas. And I had it on a DVD at that time, and I watched it until it ended, and then I would start it over and I'd watch it again. So for literally 8 hours while he was gone, I was just watching White Christmas. And for some reason, that movie latched onto a piece of my soul that felt home and felt nostalgic and felt safe. And so I don't know exactly what the reason for that is. I grew up watching that movie at Christmas time, but for some reason I latched onto that movie and that's what I would watch. And so that went like on the top of my list. And even to this day, when I'm kind of starting to feel myself sinking under that cloud, I pop in White Christmas, and even if it's just background noise while I'm cleaning or, you know, whatever, like, it helps. Some other things that help for me is I'm an artist and I love to do art. So anytime I'm able to break out my pencils or my brushes and create something, even if it's melancholy, even if it looks angry or strange, it's cathartic, it's helpful. Being able to utilize the creative part of your brain. I also play piano, so I have a really sweet old piano that I, you know, bang it out on whenever I'm, you know, feeling blue. And so those are some of the things that work for me. Like, what are some of the things on your list?
So one of mine is really funny. I love cherry Jolly Ranchers. And if I eat them when I'm not feeling depressed, they don't taste like anything. But if I eat them when I'm like having really bad anxiety or depression that I feel coming on, it makes my entire body like tingle almost. Aww. And it makes me really happy.
Aww.
Like, my friends used to carry around Jolly Ranchers in high school, like the true MVPs. Mm-hmm. And they would just give me them when I started to get that look on my face. Because my depression, literally, it looks like blank.
Yeah.
And, like, my voice goes monotone. And, like, I'm perfectly, you know, capable of doing everything that, like, I do on the day-to-day. And I almost feel like I do it better because I don't have the emotions playing into it, which is crazy.
That's interesting.
But my friends all look at it and they're like, no. No.
Jolly Ranchers. Yeah.
So that's one of mine is, like, I keep a bag of Jolly Ranchers actually in my car, and I pick out all the cherry ones, and I'll carry those around in my purse or whatever, just to, you know, in case it ever comes on and I'm in a situation where I'm like, I need to snap out of this really, really quick.
I love that.
It's just something so simple, but like, it makes me so unbelievably happy. Like, even just thinking about it, I'm like, ooh, cherry Jolly Ranchers.
Right?
Like,
Puts
yummy.
a smile on your face. I love it.
Another thing that I really, really enjoy doing, which is funny because you mentioned White Christmas, my guilty pleasure that's really cathartic for me is watching Pokemon. Because Pokemon is something that I grew up watching when I was like a really little kid. You know, it always made me happy. I would watch it with my brother on Sunday mornings, and it was just something that I really, really enjoyed, and it brings me back to a place of like my center because I remember it from such an early age where there was nothing going on that made me upset. Mm-hmm. And so I'll watch like Pokemon for hours and hours and hours on end, or I'll play Pokemon or like whatever. So that's another thing that I really enjoy doing, and it helps me kind of get back up to like a middle ground at least, even if it's not all the way up. And then playing with my dog. So
she has the prettiest dog, you guys. Like, I think my dogs are cute, but her dog is like gorgeous.
We have matching hair colors.
Yes.
No, so I got Luna 3 years ago on Valentine's Day, and I was really actually struggling with depression at that time. That was the year that I lost my scholarship. Prior to that, and it was the first time in my like adulthood, once I had hit 18, where I had genuinely contemplated committing suicide. I had contemplated it in high school, you know, but it was never like, oh, I'm actually going to do this. And like when that happened, I actually was like, why am I here? Like, I can't even go to school. Like, I can't even take, you know, I can't do it. And so the person I was dating at the time and I had also been kind of in a rough patch, you know. Moving in together wasn't like the best thing for either of us at that time. We were still really young at 18, 19, something like that. And there were just a lot of stressors going on, and we were like, well, let's get a dog, you know, because like that's not something stressful. It was, fun fact. But we lived in this little apartment, and we got Luna, my beautiful baby, and she was just like the light of my, like, I'm gonna cry, like she's the light of my life. Like, I would wake up at like 6:30 in the morning every single day to take her on a walk because I was terrified that she would be in the apartment because she couldn't go to, you know, like I didn't believe that a dog could last from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. because what some humans can't, and she was 1 year old, and to me a 1 year old can't do that. Dogs are different, but I had never had a dog, so I didn't know. And I would wake up in the middle of the night. I remember, especially when we first got her, at like 2 a.m., like freaking out, being like, where is she? And like I would look throughout the entire apartment to make sure that like she was still in there, which like where else would she
gonna go?
But it was just something like that. And then when I finally got calm about it, she became like this huge just release of emotional energy for me. And I suffer really badly from night terrors. Like I have full blown, I equate it to like having sleep paralysis and like lucid dreaming, but like it's a lucid nightmare. Like I'm fully aware of everything that's going on, but like I can't get out. So like I used to scream in my sleep, and like my eyes would be wide open, and I would know that I'm physically screaming, but like the dream is still happening. And like I used to have to duct tape socks to my hands at night because I would scratch myself while this was happening, to the point that I would bleed. And it just felt like real. So Luna started recognizing when these things were starting to happen, and I would wake up and she'd be lying on my chest. And all of a sudden, like, the night terrors went away. Like, I haven't had one since I've gotten her, and she started doing that. And she knows, like, when I'm starting to have that anxiety, I really hate people touching me. Like, I'm a very touchy person, and that is the one time where I'm like, you need to go away. Like, if you touch me, I will scream, I will hurt you. Like, I need you out of my personal space right now. And she just comes up and she puts her head here, and she's 90 pounds, almost 100 pounds, to like give you guys reference on her size. Like, she's huge. She's a white German Shepherd, basically. And she has no boundaries during that time period about laying on top of me, getting on my lap, getting in my face, and just making her presence known. And it's like a weighted blanket. Like, she just makes me feel centered and brings me back. And she'll like wipe my tears away. Like, when I'm crying, she'll start licking me. She'll play with my hair. Like, she'll put her paws on my hair and just like lay there like that, and like won't let me move until like I start breathing normal again. And like, she'll stay around me, but she slowly goes away, and as she slowly goes away, it gets better. And so Luna has been like one of the, I don't know, she's just like one of the biggest blessings in my life. I don't know if I would like be here if I didn't have her. So
it's amazing. We don't deserve dogs.
no, we don't. They're amazing.
Oh my gosh, angels with fur.
They are.
Seriously.
Oh, they just give unconditional love.
They do.
Yeah.
I love it. So how are you doing right now?
So right now I'm actually doing really good. You know, this new year came with a lot of really, really big changes. In 2018, I had a lot of things happen that they weren't really who I was. And so I had this really big kind of choice to make when I hit 2019, where it was either I'm going to continue going down this path, which was not only self-destructive, but I think destructive to a lot of the people around me who I had relationships with. And I felt like I cared a lot about, but I didn't think I was showing it right. Actually, I know I wasn't showing it properly. And so, or I could, you know, make the change and genuinely do good for myself and do good for the others I was surrounding myself with. And that's the change I started to try and make, and it came with a lot of really big kind of challenges and things that I've had to deal with. But all in all, like, my depression hasn't really acted up in 2019. Like, my anxiety has kind of been, it's been down. I've been taking a lot more time for myself and recognizing that, like, it's okay to be go, 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 but it's also okay to, like, take a minute and, like, smell the roses, or, like, go on a date, or, like, just be by myself, or hang out with girlfriends. And that's been really, really wonderful. So yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I am finishing up school this week, and
Woo!
I know, and
Woo!
my anxiety is just like manifesting physically. Like, I don't have acne ever, and I am like fully broken out like, I've never been this broken out before in my life. And then of course with the anxiety and picking at it and scratching, so I look like I'm on meth, but I'm not, I promise. It's just scabby all over here. I hate it. But I do find that I am more aware of my anxiety. I think I've maybe had 1 or 2 days this year so far that have felt really like cloud overhead, can't really pull myself out of it. So I think overall that's a pretty good track record for me. And for me, I noticed that those cloudy days sometimes coincide with my monthly period. So I'm working with my naturopath to, get hormones that are helping and all of that. But of course that takes time and things to let it kind of work well into your body. So I'm hoping that by getting my hormones adjusted properly and making sure that they're in the right levels, that those days that come about once or twice a month occasionally will slowly start to taper off.
I want to go on a tangent with that because I felt the same way. I went to the doctor a couple of days ago because I needed a re-up on my birth control, and my actual OBGYN is in Africa right now because that's where she's from. She's freaking amazing. Fun fact. But so I went to CVS, and the woman that I went and saw was looking at the birth control I've been prescribed since I was 16, and she was like, do you get angry a lot around your periods, like around the time of the month? And I was like, I do. Like, I get really, really angry, and I just figured that was normal. Like,
right.
She was like, the amount of hormones that are in this, one, don't do anything to prevent pregnancy, so I'm hoping you're not having sex, or if you're having sex, you're using something else. And I was like, okay. And she was like, second off, like, it's not enough to do anything for a woman your age. And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, we don't need to just like up your dosage like one level of hormones. Like, we need to go up 4 dosages for who you are, what you weigh, how old you are, like all of these different things. And I was like, wow. Oh my God, because I've been on the same birth control since I was 16.
Same dose, same everything.
Same everything. Nothing has ever changed, and no doctor has ever been like, do you feel anger? Do you feel sadness? And I was like, okay. So, PSA, ladies, check with your doctors. Just ask them, do you think that this hormone level is right for me? Because if you've been like, if you're like me and you got on the pill when you were 16 and you've never had an issue with it, they're not going to question it. And I'm just thankful that I went to a woman who was like, yo, this is not right. Like, this is so not right. Because when we spoke to my OB, she emailed back and forth with my OB, and my OB was like, I didn't even look. Like, she said when she came to me the first time that she's been on this pill and it's been fine, and she hasn't gotten pregnant, so what's the deal?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, so
definitely, PSA. Yes. And I think it's healthy for both men and women to just go and get your hormone levels checked.
Absolutely.
About every 3 to 5 years, just to have a good baseline and just to make sure you are functioning properly. Mm-hmm. Women can suffer from low testosterone, men can suffer from low testosterone, our progesterone levels can be off, and it really does affect so much. And so sometimes when you're going straight to pharmaceuticals, or when you're only relying on pharmaceuticals, you're missing some of the root causes, and that's a little bit of the holistic health coach in me coming out. But
I love it.
I would make sure with your doctor that your hormone levels are where they need to be, because you can really improve your mood, you can improve your day-to-day, you can improve your PMS symptoms by just making sure your hormones are properly regulated. That's our PSA for this video.
PSA!
PSA! So anyways, but I feel like I'm doing okay. And, you know, I'm just kind of in the thick of it with the end of school, and I've got finals coming up. So I'm just like ready to be done, and I'm motivated and excited to get done, but it feels a little overwhelming and scary.
Which is normal, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm giving myself the space and the right to feel that way, because that's what you should do.
Yes, I agree.
One thing we did add on our Instagram, I don't know if you've seen it, we added some fun little templates.
I did see those. They're so fun.
Can use. And one of them is a quick mental health check-in. And so our challenge for you guys this week is to go on our Instagram, find the little templates highlight, and find the how are you doing right now
I love that.
screen. Screenshot that and put it in your stories. Tag us. We want to know how you're doing this week. If you're struggling, we want to be there for you. We want to offer you any support that we can. If you're doing awesome, we want to celebrate with you. And if you're feeling just kind of meh, maybe we'll prescribe you some rosé, because it works wonders. So,
some Luna snuggles.
Some Luna snuggles.
Luna snuggles.
We'll post some extra pictures of Luna this week.
Ooh,
if you're
I'm
struggling,
gonna have to send you some.
you're gonna have to like really creep on our Instagram and find those Luna photos. All right, guys, this has been a really awesome discussion for week 1 of Mental Health March. And we're so excited to come back to you next week and talk more about how we cope with our mental health issues and
all that fun
stuff. If you guys have any questions or comments or specific things that you want addressed in our next video, you can email us at thesavvyblondes@gmail.com. You can leave us a comment. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, please. And you can also hit us up on Instagram. We hope you guys have an amazing week. Don't forget to do your mental health check-in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Guys, so much for watching our channel, The Savvy Blondes. We'd love to thank our sponsors, Thrive Co-working for Women here in Gilbert. Thank you so much, Thrive. We're so excited and blessed to be a part of you and to be able to film here. So thanks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.